Hey guys, what is going on? It is Ando, and we have another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. We got to talk about Leviathan and kind of what's going on right now, because I think there's a lot of people that aren't keyed in, and yeah, there's just a lot to be said right now. So before we get into the video, if I could just have your guys' help to like the video, comment on it, subscribe to the channel. All those things are things that you guys can do to help me out, and I really greatly appreciate it. So I think to give a little bit of backstory, right, we got all the road ahead stuff and, you know, all the information that basically said that Leviathan was supposed to be a meta-breaking fleet, meta-defining fleet, I guess is a better way of putting it. I think that's more closely to what they were saying. And we know that there's been some really buggy releases recently, but I think I've been playing this game since I think late 2016. And so this, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of things go wrong. It is very typical for something to not come out smoothly. And this, though, I would say Leviathan itself is probably single-handedly the most broken thing that's ever come out. Broken being that it's bugged. So at first we had to kind of work through that before we could ever actually see what really happened with the fleet, right? So today we got, well, I guess for you guys it'll be yesterday. We got a post from CG Tuscan Meathead saying that there's been some reports of matchup discrepancies for Profundity versus Leviathan and Chimera versus Leviathan as well, and they're just going to investigate them. Now, the first thing that I want to say before we get into this any further is just because they're looking into something, they don't always action it. In fact, there's been times where if we look back, I remember when TIE Echelon came out for the First Order, it basically opened up a counter for First Order versus the Executor, and they said that they were going to investigate it. They investigated it, and then they actually came out with a fix that helped buff the TIE Echelon counter towards the Executor, and it nerfed the malevolence counter towards the Executor. So just because they said they're going to do some investigation behind it doesn't actually mean that they're going to end up doing anything, or if they do anything, that it's going to end up helping versus one case or the other. But that being said, I think that there are going to be some fixes that go on with this, because there has to be a line drawn, and there has to be something that you have to kind of say, like, hey, this is healthy for the game and this is not healthy for the game. But I think people are kind of overreacting on what it is, and they're not just talking about all Profundity cases. They're not talking about all Chimera cases versus Leviathan. So we're going to kind of get into what exactly they mean. So, okay, and so I have some footage. I just took some from my Fleet Arena. There's only one Leviathan in the Fleet Arena. So this is my Leviathan right now against Profundity, against someone else's Profundity. I put it on auto, and, I don't know if we're going to watch all this, but basically it wins, right? So what could possibly be going on with these, right? Like how could this be messing up, I guess? What do they need to investigate? So in a second you'll see, so we'll let this play out a little bit, right? Yeah, we'll clearly, right now may not look like we're doing much, and it's true. It kind of takes Leviathan a little bit to kind of get going here. There's our, broken reinforcement thing that goes on. And then, here they're going to come bring out. So take a look at Y-Wing right now, right? All right, so you saw right there, days was added because there's a piece inside of the Leviathan kit that states that whenever a reinforcement happens, the ships out there get dazed. So I'm going to fast forward this, right? And again, this is where we have to kind of take into consideration that they're not talking about all cases of Profundity. So let's just find exactly where we go in. So later on, I basically come in with my own, this is the end of the match. But basically, the next thing that I do is I find the only other Leviathan that I have in my fleet shard, and I use my own Profundity. Now, I do fill in the reinforcements just because I don't want to get sniped or anything like that. So if I don't want there only to be 3 ships in my fight. So this guy has Sith Assassin out as his starter. So this is a little bit of an easier fight whenever it comes to profundity counter against it. But really, all I need is those 3 ships. I don't need these reinforcements at all. Again, I'm just putting them in so that way, if in case like someone fights me, I don't get knocked out of place, because I wanted to do this multiple times. So, yeah, this is profundity versus Leviathan here. And here's why they're investigating this. And this is why I think they're going to fix this one particularly. Basically, you just come out, you know, like a normal match, I guess. And you go ahead and go give yourself speed up. The whole reason why profundity doesn't work against Leviathan, at least when we're doing auto, is because the AI is playing a certain way, like a normal match would ever be. The problem is with profundity, you need assists to get the ultimate, and really this is a race to the ult. It's a lot of these ship metas now are just a race to the ult, so we just need assists, right? You could see right on me right now, I guess Outrider's the only one with days. That's from the concussions that happen, that, you know, from hitting Sith Marauder. But for the most part, we're actually pretty clean right now, right? We can get assists. We can actually get some stuff going. Now, of course, we have 2 here. We're going to cleanse there. But as long as I don't bring out a reinforcement, none of my ships gain days. And like I said, you know, in a more proper, I guess, you know, fleet lineup, that ship wouldn't come out first. Someone would get, you know, insta-killed, I guess, if you will. But yeah, the story of this is that if you don't bring out a reinforcement, you're actually better off. You're going to get your ult because no one's going to sit there, or at least some of your team is not going to be days, which gives you the opportunity of assisting. And so this is why I think this is going to get fixed, because this is like actually going against what this game tries to promote, which is playing a fleet battle that makes sense, right? It doesn't make sense to come in and underman a fleet that's supposedly the meta defining fleet that's supposed to happen. So anyways, I cut the footage right here. We end up winning, right? And like, you see this, right? We're at full health and protection, right? And even if they did end up killing one of our ships, like we would have won GAC with really high banners. In fact, we'll show it right now. We would have won, you know, on average, it looks like with about 76.2 banners, right? This is GAC or SWGoH.gg. They're GAC Leviathan counters. And then same thing with the TIE dagger. That's the more, you know, I guess common counter against it. And this one's good for mirror matches, right? It makes it harder, but this one's really the one that you're going to see as an anti-profundity. You know, there's a 3% drop rate, I guess. You know, I don't know. Maybe people just didn't know what to do or whatever. You know, so 85% of the time, though, they're going to win at like a 76, 77 banner win. That to me, again, if I had to take a guess, that to me is going to get fixed. That just is ridiculous, right? That I'm not the kind of guy that likes to safeguard the meta or anything like that, but let's do stuff that makes sense, right? You shouldn't be punished for wanting to bring in more ships. That's a very normal thing. That is the reason why they have reinforcement, you know, like abilities, and all those should make a difference, right? You shouldn't be penalized for you trying to play the game in which the way the game should be played. That's why I think the profundity one will get fixed. Now they talk about the Chimera one, and that's the one that I've been using personally. It is a little bit less of a, you know, success rate. If you look down here, right, we got it 74.7 or a 62.4. You know, I've never lost it, so I don't know what went wrong here. I don't know if maybe like some of these relics aren't up to par. You know, I don't know if they're going in with a gear 8 item or something like that. So it's tough to say, but I would think that they're okay with a win percentage here. I mean, we've got some pretty solid ships in here. You effectively take your 2 Empire fleets and you negate them down to 1. And yeah, I mean, it's not like a sure shot gonna win kind of thing. The banners on it on average, are about 10 banners lower. So, you're giving up, even if you do get the win, you're giving up some ground and banners, right? So I think the Chimera counter is safe. For me personally, I don't think there's anything that's getting exposed in there. You still are calling out Iden, and Iden is carrying just like she was for executor counter. So that's my opinion, guys. Like I think, and I want to just remind people like that, it's not every single profundity counter that I think. Now, I don't know what their fix is going to be. Maybe whatever their fix is going to be will affect the other profundity counters, but I think they're going to be aiming at stuff like this. This is the stuff that they seem to be having an issue with, and I fully support that because game balance is important. You don't want people saying, well, why should I go for Leviathan? I mean, this gets 3-manned. Even though that's a fallacy in of itself, like you just don't want to build that into your company's reputation when, that is a driving factor of your revenue, right? Again, this isn't about protecting the meta. This is about protecting and making things make sense. And again, I'm all good with counters that we come up with as long as they're, there's a decent chance for failure, right? Because that's what the meta should be. There should be some risk involved in that, or potentially just the banner drop. Like I said, just knowing that, hey, just going in here, with a Chimera fleet and, you walk out with a 66, that's like a ground score, essentially. Like, there are people that Wampa solo for higher banners than that. So I just want us to like make sense of some of the things that are happening. It's not them going, there was definitely some bugs that happened with Leviathan when it first came out. There's no doubt about it. But this is not a bug. This is just an oversight from them to say that, well, like they got called out on this, right? Like they just said, well, I don't, my ship's ultimate ability is based off of how many times I can assist, and I can't assist if I'm dazed. So I'm just never going to call out a reinforcement. So I don't know what the fix is going to be. Like I said, I don't know if the fix is also going to affect the Chimera counter, right? It's hard to sometimes buff up a fleet or buff up something and then also have it be staying the same for another, counter or whatever. It's tough for that to happen. So just expect some changes, guys. But honestly, the mechanics I think are there for Profundity to continue to counter, the Leviathan. I just think that in general, we're just gonna see this one kind of go away. I don't know how they'll do it though. Anyways, like I said, hopefully you guys, this clears up the air. And another one, just as like a kind of aside, same thing with the Night Sister Jabba counter. I don't expect a huge change to happen. Right now, that counter is getting, stood up a little bit before Datacron that's happening. And even then, if you watch people do it, it's still a pretty decent chance for failure. Though the ones that are at lower relic levels are actually just exposed to stuff that's happening at like gear 7, gear 8. That's what they're probably going to be looking at for the Night Sister one, against Jabba. I don't think they're going to stop relic stuff. They're just looking at cutting out those ones where you're like, hey, I've got a gear 7 initiate, and you put it in there and you're not even using the Datacron, but you're still actually winning. That's stuff that they want to safeguard against, right? Because you don't want your Galactic Legend getting killed by something that had, a gear 7 in it. So again, agree or disagree. That's just the way that it is. And honestly, game balance is really important. It's what's kept this game around since, I picked it up in 2016 and before that. So I'm all for it as long as it makes sense. Again, hopefully we're not sitting here beating our head against Leviathan, but they also need to fix some of this stuff, in my opinion. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.